Hello, Monty Betham. Thank you for choosing Once a Warrior. My guest today, he came with the grand final winner's ring and he played in 2004 to 2007, playing 53 times in the jumper. Tony Martin, thank you for your time, my man.
I appreciate you having me, Mont.
How are you, Marto?
Yeah, very good, mate. Life's good. Family's happy, healthy, living back in Australia. So, yeah, life's good.
Australia, where and what are you up to?
We're living in Rockhampton now, so central Queensland, about 7 hours north of Brisbane. So we came home end of 2012, retired, came home, finished an apprenticeship as an electrician for a couple of years and then got into financial planning. I'd always studied financial planning, so started as a financial planner about 7 years ago. So I do that. And then on the side, do a little bit of coaching. So I'm assistant coach of Central Queensland Capras, so that's our local team in the Queensland Cup, and we've got a bye with the Capras back in Queensland. So here with Mel and Tana. So
I know young Tana is a Warriors fan. So let's remind yourself and also Tana of how good Dad was back in the day in the jumper.
And here is Martin down the right side. And Tony Martin, what a play! Tony Martin, it's a foot race. It's no contest. See you later, says the centre three-quarter. Martin close to the line. Martin's over. Here's Martin up against the sideline. What a start for the Warriors. Chasing through is Martin, who wins the race for the ball. Tony Martin, has he got the pace? Yes, he has. Tony Martin is away. Tony Martin will score the Warriors first. Tony Martin, and what a champagne finish.
Marto, when you see those tries, when you see the headgear, the memories, what comes back, man?
Oh, mate, it's like it was yesterday. It's scary to think, we're only thinking last week before we came back that it's been 15, 16 years. And that's unbelievable. Like taking Mel and Tana back to the stadium yesterday just brought back so many memories, so many happy memories. We had an amazing 4 years, here at the Warriors. It wasn't always successful on the field the years that I was here, and I remember back in the day we used to come through the tunnel from the old Ericsson number 2, through the tunnel, have all the drummers and the flames and run onto the field just thinking, there's no way in the world that we can get beat tonight. You never got sick of it. You just started to tingle and you just mate, you grew a foot taller. Mate, amazing memories, amazing friends that we made. So it's great to be back.
Only 282 players have played first grade for the Warriors in terms of put on that jumper. You're still there in 10th in all-time point scorer.
Yeah.
How does that sit and how does that make you feel, Marto?
To have some sort of accolade, again, none of us play for accolades, but yeah, it's something that I'm really proud of. The thing that excites me the most is my son Tana is a huge Warriors fan, and I know things like that, make him happy. He was born here in Auckland. It makes his weekend or it breaks his weekend, like the rest of the Warriors fan base, and me included, and Mel obviously is also a Warriors supporter, her family from here. They're both huge Warriors fans, so we certainly follow the club closely.
You could be forgiven for thinking you're a gypsy because the travelling you've been doing from a young age was huge. You were from Gladstone to London to Melbourne, back to London and then here to Auckland. Talk to me about the Warriors. How did it happen, man?
I was back in England playing Super League, the second time that I've been back in England, and it was one of those all the stars aligned. We'd sort of made a decision that we would prefer to come back to the NRL to play. I was still only about 25 at the time, and so I had spoken to the manager about trying to get something back in the NRL. At the time, the Warriors were searching for a goal kicker. Webby wasn't having his best run. It was also taking about 5 minutes every time he goal kick. So he was copping a bit of heat.
And then, sorry, just to jump in on that, because that became the Brent Webb rule.
Yes, it did.
The 60-second time
You only
limit.
had 60 seconds to goal kick. So Warriors were looking for a kicker. I was looking for a club. And at the time in Super League, I'd currently kicked 27 goals in a row. So I was actually going for a world record. So it happened, the media sort of got hold of it, that I was going for this goal-kicking record. The Warriors were looking for a goal kicker, and it all happened pretty quick. The easiest thing, I suppose, for me, one that Mel's always been fantastic with where we went. She was always very forthcoming in, doing the best for my career, and, you can never say thank you enough for that. But her family's actually from New Zealand. So her mum and dad are both Kiwis. Dad's from Huntly, Hamilton area. Mum's from Timaru, Dunedin area. So she had uncles, aunties, cousins, things like that. So it was actually really exciting, to sort of say, hey, we can go back to the NRL. For me, professionally, I can go to this amazing team that had made the grand final 2 years ago, on their way to a prelim that year, 2003. So I can go to this great club. You just knew that they wanted us to be here. They were so welcoming. The club was so good, and it's a massive club. Even when the club has been languishing, it's still a huge club. It's always been a sleeping giant. At the moment they're super successful, which is so exciting for all of us, to sit there and watch.
Marta, who surprised you early on? I mean, you may have seen them from afar and you thought they were a good player, but actually being side by side in training or playing alongside these guys, it was more than you imagined.
Oh, it's hard to name one. I remember the first 2 weeks of training here and just thinking, oh my God, these guys who are big, strong guys, and I'd seen them play and played against them, but to see them every day and see the things that happened at training that you didn't see on game day, but you saw that they could do at training, and you just thought to yourself, how on earth, how skillful are you? It's crazy.
I'm hearing you on your phone telling all your mates overseas that there's another premiership coming.
Mate, there would have been some money lost in Australia through my mates, because I tipped them off that we were going to win the comp. It's like, mate, you've never seen anything like this. I've won a comp before and we had a great team. Like, this team is better than that.
Yeah, don't you hurting me? You hurt me.
It hurts me. It does.
Just hurts. So just from that, in terms of being a part of teams that were successful, what you saw from the outside, in your mind, what happened?
To me, what I've sort of sold myself is it seemed like that you'd been up for so long, because I remember turning up and the way Daniel Anderson coached, it was like technical. It was run up and down the field in threes. Now, it wasn't just catch and pass. It was catch with your fingers spread, on this angle, and it was catch here. So it wasn't catch here. I remember, after being there for a week, he'd almost convinced me that I couldn't catch, because he's like, why do you catch here? You got to catch here. I'm like, what do you mean? And he terrorised me. But, you thought, and even as a player in the middle of my career, I just thought, this is amazing. This is to go and be taught every day new skills to just be a little bit better. But I looked around and you guys had that for 3 years. Yeah. And there were some guys who were just like, up and down the field in threes again. God. Whereas I was going, this is amazing. He's going to critique everything I do. But you guys had it for 3 years, and I just think it was that little bit, and we sort of went looking for something different and trained a little bit different that pre-season. We didn't sort of run so much. We swam instead of running. And we bulked up.
Got too big. Far too big. I don't want to stay here for too long because it still hurts, my man. But in saying that, let's go back to your debut, which is an important game.
Yes.
It was the Brisbane Broncos. And when I look back at the records, you were wearing number 6, man. Marto, talk to me about that game, when you found out. How was that whole experience in that game? What do you remember?
Mate, super excited. Obviously, the draw for a Queenslander. Great, we get to play at Suncorp against the Broncos, and I'm thinking I'm playing the team that's going to win the comp. So I'm like, bring this on. This is great. Family down to watch. And we trained a little bit different through the pre-season, but Daniel sort of had this idea. Obviously, when I came, I was a centre, but I was brought as the goal kicker, and we already had Vinnie Anderson and Clinton Torpey. So it's like, okay, how do we make this work? So Daniel had this idea that Vinnie Anderson would defend at 5'8", I would defend at centre, and Webby would defend at fullback. But then in attack, Webby would come forward and he would play as a 5'8" and attack. Vinny would be at centre and I would be fullback. And so it was one of those jumbling of who's going to wear what numbers? Well, Webby always wears number 1. Vinny always wears number 3. So it's like, who's going to wear number 6? I'll wear number 6. I've never got to wear number 6. Webby scored 2 runaway tries. I still remember it. 2 runaway tries in the first half. Both times he got to about 30 metres out and slowed down and then just ran to the corner and scored. And I'm like, what are you doing to me?
He's testing you.
I've been brought as a goal kicker. You're trying to make me look bad. He's trying to score right in the corner. And I remember we were leading at half time, but walked into the dressing room and I don't reckon I've ever felt more tired in my life. We probably hadn't trained the right way. We'd bulked too much, and we were sitting there at halftime in front against the Broncos in Brisbane. But there was no worse feeling. It was like, oh my golly, we're in trouble here. Like, we've got to try and hang on. And we didn't. I can't remember what the score. I think we got beat by 6 or 8.
Mate, it wasn't what you signed up for. We meant to be down the final series again and play, the top teams. But we found ourselves struggling that year. Your thoughts on what happened, and just some memories. I mean, we had a lot of times we were trying to get up. Well, I mean, we had a good squad, but we just couldn't quite find it.
I mean, you don't like to dwell on negatives, but there were a few things that happened that year. Obviously, Daniel stepped down from coaching, so that made it really hard. Makes it hard on any team when a coach leaves and a new coach comes in. As much as Kempy was already here, just made it a little bit more difficult. But yeah, one sort of memory was about when Ali left as well. And again, it probably sticks in my mind, probably more so than most others. It was an afternoon where something had happened, and I'd come back to the club late. I was coming back to do some training on my own, so came back late in the afternoon, 5:30, and as I drove up Beasley Avenue, to go into what was the old training ground, Ali was sort of just happened to be standing out in the middle of the road on his phone on his own. And I got out of the car and I sort of walked over and I said, "Oh, mate, you okay?" And he's like, "Oh," and looked at me. So he said, "Oh, do you think I would like it playing in England?" And I said, "Why would you ask that?" And he said, "Oh, well, I think that's what might be where I'm going." And I said, "I don't know what's happened, but, do I think you'd be awesome over there? Yes, but, mate, you can't be leaving us here." And he said, "Oh, I don't think I've got much of a choice." And that to me was super sad. That was absolutely super sad to see that type of thing. So like I say, it was a tough year. There was, everyone's got excuses, and we sort of certainly had plenty. But yeah, I was happy to see the end.
For you, centre, was that the place you wanted to be?
Yeah, it's the place I became more comfortable with. So I grew up as a fullback. Went into first grade when I first went to London as a 17-year-old as a fullback, and then 17, yeah. So left home at 17, went to England, played Super League at 17, 18. And then came back to Melbourne when I was 19. Signed as a backup fullback to Robbie Ross, who was, and I was playing for Australia at the time, so there wasn't much, room for me there. So I'd played a little bit of centre as well growing up, and so I had an opportunity to play first grade at centre at Melbourne. The position I love to play. I think it suited my game. I wasn't really a winger like Manu who could come in and carry the ball. I didn't have that body shape, but tried to be pretty good defensively and organise our side.
You mentioned Manu. Who were your favourite wingers outside you and what you enjoyed?
Easy answer for that one. Two, Manu Vatuvei and Toddy Byrne.
Polar opposites. Manu Vatuvei, big man, and then Skinny Burns. I want to hear why.
Manu Vatuvei, you're 5 metres off your try line, you want someone to carry it, you want Manu to carry the ball. He would carry it to 15, 20, 25 metres. Skinny was more like me. He was a natural footballer. He was the sort of guy, if someone got injured, you could have put Toddy Byrne at 5'8" or halfback or hooker, and he probably spent more time on the wing outside. Manu was more on the other side, outside toops. So I probably had Skinny outside me for a fair bit of time, and I loved playing with him. He was the sort of guy who, very similar to me. We knew we weren't superstars, but we knew we just had to go out every week and be 7 out of 10. We didn't have to be a 9, but we couldn't be a 5. We just needed to be a 7 out of 10. We trained that way, and we tried to play like that every week, and that's what I loved about playing with Skinny.
Talk to me about your second rower then, and who you liked inside and why.
For me, I probably spent most time with Logan Swan inside me. Now, Logs, again, probably didn't get the accolades that he did because the team was so star-studded, but man, it didn't go unnoticed from the people who played alongside him. He was tough when he needed to be tough, but skillful when he needed to be skillful. And again, loved playing with Logs.
It's pretty tough on his own teammates at times. fair, but if you didn't cut it, or if you weren't doing what you meant to be doing, you never know. No, he gave out a few sprays, harsh but fair. I think I was on the end of a few of those, but again, you prefer to play with guys like that. They're passionate, they're honest, and at the end of the day, we're on the field. We're on the field to do a job. We're on the field to try and win. It's nothing personal. We're trying to get the best out of each other. And that's
that's what all professionals are like.
You said you're a natural footy player. You're not a big man, big centre at all. In terms of rugby league hacks or what you had to do as a player, I mean, what did you really work on to ensure that you could do what you did? I mean, you're a grand final winning player.
Yeah, my biggest thing, Nonce, was always I wanted to be the fittest person at the club.
Yeah.
That was always the challenge that I gave to myself every year, no matter what club I played at, whether it was in England, Australia, here at the Warriors. My challenge was always to be the fittest person. I was never going to be the biggest. I was never going to be the strongest. You know, I was a good talker. I tried to be a really good teammate and a really good leader. But my thing was always, if I'm the fittest at the club, well, then I can drag other people up to that level.
Yeah.
You know, for my thing, it was always, you know, the fitter you are, you make better decisions for longer. You know, and if we could get everybody higher than where they were, then that was always going to benefit us.
Over the years, we've had some really dynamic players who have worn the headgear. Not always small either. Fika Palesina wore the headgear. You know, there's been a number that sort of made it iconic.
It was part of Dad's rules for me playing when I was a kid. Yeah, so my brother was a couple of years older. He was 6, I was 4. I wanted to play. He said, "Okay, you can play so long as you wear headgear." I don't know if he thought that would deter me from playing or not, but that was it. Yeah, so I sort of wore it from when I was 4 years old and never played a game without it. You know, I could probably name on one hand the amount of times that I actually played a little bit of time. One of them was the NRL Grand Final. It actually, someone ripped it off and broke it. So I actually played for about, 2 or 3 minutes without it.
And you're proud to wear the Māori heritage headgears as well, which I saw yourself in Wairangi Kopu.
Yep.
The feeling to be able to do that early on, because it wasn't something that was around before your time.
No, so it was a company that I got involved with when I moved here to New Zealand. And so he had asked, we can put some designs on if you like. So it was, I spoke to Y about it and asked him if he wanted to sort of do a design. That's the design. He came back and he said, are you happy to wear that? I'm like, yeah, I'm all in. Like, let's do it. Yeah. So they got it designed and did it. Funnily enough, it's that headgear brand is still going now, and Tana now wears exactly the same headgear, same design.
2006, do you think that was your best year? Because, I mean, you scored 160 points, which is still 7th on the all-time season list. It
was probably the most consistent year I had once. 2004, I had some injuries, hamstring, tore my quad, so I was playing but wasn't goal kicking. 2005, I obviously did my neck, so I think I only played the first 2 games, hurt my neck, and then didn't play the rest of 2005. And then by 2007, Woody had turned up, and he was a pretty handy goal kicker, so handed those duties over to him. So 2006 was probably my most consistent year for the club, and obviously I was goal kicking. We started to go okay. The last couple of years I was pretty happy with how I went here.
First of all, when you did the neck, I mean, that's not an easy injury to come back from. The mindset to put that season, which is a write-off behind you, but even to play again, and then also what made you so good the following year in 2006.
Yeah, it was really tough. I'd never had a serious injury like that before. So round 2, I think it was round 2, we played Brisbane in Brisbane, hurt my neck, came back, had a scan. The guy read the scan, said, "No, you're fine, no worries." Went back to training on Thursday, trained Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then Doc Mayhew actually rang me after captain's run and said, "Oh, hey, you need to come and see me in my office." I said, "Oh, why is that now?" He said, "Yeah, and you need to get someone to drive you here. You can't drive." Wow. I said, "Why is that?" "Oh, mate, I've just had a look at your scans. I think you need surgery." So that's how that sort of came about. If he hadn't have picked it up, then things could have turned pear-shaped pretty bad. But luckily he did. Went for surgery. They said, "Right, that's you done for the year." So that was probably one of the toughest years that I had. Just you just didn't know. Like, do I go to training? I just feel like I'm hanging around. I'm not part of the team. And then leading into 2006. Ivan obviously taken over as the coach. We played a trial game at North Harbour, and obviously I'm normally a centre. For whatever reason, he said, "Oh, you're going to play fullback." Yeah. And I'm thinking, this is hard enough. Hard enough. I'm coming back. I don't know. Now I've done contact at training, but I've not done it in a game. How's this going to be? And all of a sudden now I'm playing fullback. And I got to a point that week leading up to that trial game, and just thought, you know what? I've just got to trust in the process. I've always trusted in the process of my training and everything that I've done. I've just got to trust in the process that the surgeon is happy. I've done what I need to do at training, and I just need to go back to enjoying footy. Stop being worried. Stop being worried about an injury. Stop being worried about... Because at the end of the day, I'm just happy that I'm not in a wheelchair. I'm happy that, I can go out and play footy again. And you know what? If I go out and I don't enjoy it and it's not right, Then I retire and I move on to something else. And I remember going into that game probably with the best mindset that I was scared. I was like, I won't lie, I was scared, but I went into it thinking, okay, this is a real carefree, this is a free hit for me. If it goes great, well, I'm back on the horse and off I go again. If it doesn't, then I'll just retire and I'll go home. I was always a real stressor, had to do this every day, plan everything out, sleep at the right time, and if I didn't, that sort of threw me. And like I said, I think I just changed my mindset a little bit into, hey, let's just go back to enjoying it. Let's go back to playing what we originally played for. We had a really good team around us. Again, we were, playing in front of a great fan base at a great stadium. It's like, stop stressing the little things and remember what you're actually here for. And things started to work out good.
You were part of the 2007 team and you got to play in the finals game. What do you remember about that game at that moment?
So leading up to that final series, I'd actually broken my ribs, broke 3 ribs in a game here at Mount Smart. So I had a couple of weeks off, and it's one of those things in professional sport. By the time I was ready to come back, I remember having a conversation with Ive on the phone, and again, this is where he was a very straight shooter. Now, it didn't matter how many games I'd played or where I sort of sat on the team. Jerome Roparty had come in, done fantastic. Yeah. Team had won 2 or 3 games in a row, and he said, oh, well, are you okay? Are you right to play? I said, yeah. And he said, well, if you're right to play, you'll be playing reserve grade. And I said, yep, that's fine. So I ended up going back to play a couple of games reserve grade. Yeah. I'd never been dropped in my whole career, but I certainly didn't have the ego that I was too big for that. So I went back and played a couple of games in the Barter Cart and actually really enjoyed it. It was quite refreshing. And then watched the first semi here in Auckland, the one that we got beat. And obviously we'd finished 4th, got beat in that final. And then Ive called me in sort of on that Tuesday and said, oh, hey, right, you're back in the team this week. We're going to Townsville away, for a semi-final. So again, it was exciting for me. I'm from Central Queensland, North Queensland.
Too, mate.
Yep, family all came up. I'd already signed to go back to England. The club sort of made a decision mid-season that year that they were going to sign Brent Tate and sign Brent Tate. Again, they were very open about that and let me know, which was good. So I'd signed a deal to go back to England. So you started to think, oh, this is going to be one of my last games soon. Hopefully it's not going to be this week, but with a couple of minutes to go, you sort of looked at the scoreboard and thought, this is just about it. So it was a bittersweet game, I suppose. Something I was really excited about, an NRL final, playing the Cowboys in front of my family. Mum and Dad, I remember, drove up to Townsville to watch, and then it ended so sort of disappointing. And sat there and thought, that's probably the last NRL game I'll ever play.
Your 4 years here at the club, how do you sum that time up?
Yeah, it's very special. Like I said, I sometimes get down on myself for the results, I suppose, that happened while I was here. I get down.
You're not alone, mate. We all do that.
And it is. You sort of dwell on things. I wish I could have been better. I wish I, but I think the overarching thing that I think about our time here is just how much we loved it. How much we loved the people, how much we loved the club, how well looked after we were. Everyone was really caring. You play at clubs in Australia and it's all about winning. It's a business. It's like you turn up to your job. You don't turn up to training, you turn up to work. And they are all about winning. They are all about, it's a business, your own business within a business. Like I've got to look after myself and get my own contract, but then we all have to go and win. I'm not saying we weren't here to win, certainly the Warriors, because we absolutely were. And again, that's why I loved it. That's why it was so hard to leave, because people genuinely cared about me, cared about my family, and it was an amazing 4 years, and I'm glad that I had something to do with this club, and I'm glad that I can come back here as an old boy and welcome back, and because it's a special club, and I love my time here.
Mate, once a Warrior, always a Warrior, mate. You're one of my favourite guys to play alongside because you just cared so much, mate. So thank you for your service.
Appreciate it, mate. Thanks for having me.
I'm Monty Betham. Thank you for joining us. Join me again next week for another episode of Once a Warrior.
And here is Martin. Martin down the right side. And Tony Martin. What a play. Tony Martin, it's a foot race. It's no contest. See you later, says the centre three-quarter. Martin close to the line. Martin's over. Here's Martin up against the sideline. What a start for the Warriors. Chasing through